Hello YouTube. Today I'm going to show you how to change the automatic transmission fluid in a 1996 Toyota Corolla. Now the procedure is very similar for many vehicles. You may have a little bit different size tool, and of course you'll have a different transmission filter and gasket, but the actual process is very similar. So it basically consists of 5 steps. Number 1, you want to secure and elevate your vehicle. Number 2, you want to drain out the old transmission fluid into a catch pan. Number 3, you want to change your gasket and your transmission filter after you remove the bottom pan. You have to remove the bottom pan, and there's a filter inside the transmission. And here's the example. This particular car takes this filter here, and I'll show you what it looks like. Brand new. We'll open this little box, take it out, and this is the gasket that will go around the bottom pan that you have to take off, and all these little holes. You can see all these little holes around there. That's how many screws is going to be on that pan. And here is the filter. This will be inside. It's held on by three bolts. You can see here. Use the bolt holes. And this has a little quart gasket on it as well. And this vehicle, it takes 14 millimeter for the drain bolt, and it takes a 10 millimeter for the actual bolts to remove the drain pan from the vehicle. I'm going to cheat and use a tool here that's handier than a wrench. Number 3, you want to put your drain pan back on after you clean it and check for metal or debris or anything like that. You want to put your drain pan back on. And number 4, you want to put new, fresh transmission fluid. The quantity will be specified by your vehicle's manufacturer. And number 5, of course, you want to lower your vehicle and take the wheel chocks out from behind the wheels. So let's get right into it. Let's go to the shop and change the automatic transmission fluid. Okay, we're in the shop, and step 1 has been taken care of. We've got wheel chucks on the back wheels. Safety first. And we're going to have jack stands in the front before we take out the floor jack. Now we'll go underneath and drain the automatic transmission fluid. Okay, now we're under the car, and we're going to do step 2, drain out the old automatic transmission fluid. Just remove this drain bolt here and let it flow. Now this drain bolt has a crush washer on it, so you want to make sure that you make sure you replace that if it's in good shape, and if not, put a new one on. But don't put it back on without it. And there you go. Next, we'll remove this bottom pan. When all the transmission fluid is finished draining out, and we'll change the filter inside, and then clean up this pan and put a new filter on and reinstall the pan. And then we'll go up top side and put in fresh new automatic transmission fluid, and then lower the car and remove the wheel chocks. So next step will be removing this bottom pan once the oil is done. Okay, it's time for step 3. We've got all of the transmission fluid drained out, and now it's time to remove the bottom drain pan. you get the idea. I won't make you suffer through the removal of all of those mount bolts. The next shot, the pan will magically be removed. Okay, we got the bottom pan off. It actually looks really clean. We'll come back and clean up a little bit more after we put the filter on. So let's take a look at the filter. Here's the new filter, and we're going to put that on right now. Let's go down underneath and take a look at the bottom of the transmission once the cover is off. We'll see what that looks like. And now we'll just take off that old filter and replace it with the new one. It just has 3 bolts, and you'll notice, you have noticed I have a pan under here. You want to have a pan underneath when you take this bottom cover off, bottom pan off, because there's going to be a lot of residual fluid. You're going to have drips. So you want to do that to keep fluid from dripping all over your floor. And then too, again, as you can see, when you take the filter loose, you're going to get more fluid that didn't drain out initially. And then when you take that last bolt out, you want to put a hand on the filter so it doesn't fall into the pan and splash fluid everywhere. How do I know that? So I'll just put this in. I'll actually just lean this up against the side, and we're going to just go straight on through. Now these 3 bolts are different lengths. You'll notice here the single bolt is longer. It's longer than the 2. So just note that you put the correct screws back in the correct locations. So now we're going to put the new filter in. Here it is. So this is the part. So I want to make sure that this gasketed part here mates up to the car. You don't want to try and put it in backwards. And not that I think you could. And here's the other side. So let's go ahead and do that. Line it up. Get one of the shorts, because the 2 short ends go on the side of the filter, the gasket is. So here's one short. There's the other short. And let's see. There's the long one. Goes in over here. Let's go up. I guess there's a recess and it has to reach a little farther. Always start these by hand. Never start them with a power tool like the impact wrench. That's how you end up cross-threading it and stripping threads, and then you have a whole new batch of problems. So start them by hand. It just takes a second. And you can torque them with a torque wrench, or if you have experience, you know that you can just, you know the feel of it. In a non-critical part like this, you can just snug it up, which is what I'm going to do now. Just snug. It doesn't have to be really, really tight, and that's good enough. Now we're going to go over and clean up that bottom pan and get the new gasket and put it back on. Okay, it's time for step 4. We're going to clean this bottom pan. I used to use Dawn, but let's take a look at this. The pan will have these little magnets in it, and these magnets are really clean. There's no, there's a little bit of fine metal from the, this is normal, for normal operation, so you want to clean these magnets off. There's one here and one here at 90 degrees. See these? You want to examine these and see if make sure there's no chunks of metal on there. Because if there is, you need to get into a shop, a transmission shop, and have your transmission looked at. But these have just a little bit of fine, and this transmission is in great shape. So I drained all the residual oil out, transmission fluid out, into the pan. Now I'm going to clean it. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in this bucket here. I use Dawn. And by the way, this water is warm for my convenience, so it's comfortable for my little gloved hands. So I just pump a lot of Dawn in here. Dawn helps to break up this, whatever this fluid is made out of. Dawn just really breaks it up good, so I always use Dawn. And it's just like washing dishes. You put some in there and you wash it around, and then you take your little magnets here, okay, and you clean those up real good. Make sure you don't forget to put them back in there because they protect your transmission. And so yeah, that cleaned up real easy. Looks really nice. And clean them both up. And I don't ordinarily recommend this, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it. In this particular case, this bottom cover gasket is cork, and cork's a pain to take off. So, foreign to what I would normally do, I'm not going to take that gasket off because it looks like it's in excellent condition. It had no leaks prior. So, I'm not going to go through the effort of removing it, because there's really no reason to remove it. It's in perfect shape and there were no leaks before. And it's a cork, so it's very spongy and pliable. It's in good shape still. And here, we have the new gasket here. It's rubber. I actually think this cork gasket might be better. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it on. That's a call you'd have to make. If your gasket tears when it's coming off, then obviously you want to change it. But in this particular case, I'm going to leave the gasket on. It's going to save me work, and I think it's going to provide a better seal and more longevity. And it's served this vehicle well so far. So yeah, here's the little magnets. I think they have little indentations for them to hold them so they don't move around. One here. And that's it. This is nice and clean now. Looks really good. And the next step is to reinstall it. Go down there and put all of these little mount bolts back in. And this particular one, how many bolts are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18. So yeah, this was the 18 bolt configuration. So that's one of the things you need to know if you have this particular vehicle, because there are different configurations for the 1996 Toyota Corolla. There's a 15 and an 18, and this happens to be 15. So you want to look at that before you go in and ask for a replacement transmission filter. All right, so now that's all cleaned up and it's ready to go back on the vehicle. Next shot will be underneath the car, reinstalling the bottom pan. And when you do that, don't forget to install your plug and your washer. This is a really good high quality brass crush washer, so I'm going to reuse it as well. But you may need to change your crush washer sometimes. But don't forget to put the drain plug and the crush washer back on. Sometimes, in fact, you can do that before you even put the pan on. You can put it in, you can install it outside of the vehicle and tighten it up, and that way you can't forget. All right, so I'll see you under the car. Okay, it's time for step 4. I'm going to reinstall this bottom pan. Got it right here. It's pretty simple. You just line up the holes the way they were, and you start screwing in the little screws. And these are usually all the same size, but when you take them off, just kind of pay attention to which ones go where to see if there's one or two that are of a different length. And if they're all the same length, then you can put them all back in whatever hole. Doesn't matter which hole they go back in, but if there's a bolt that's longer or shorter than the others, it needs to go back in the same hole that it came out of, or you could have a very serious damage issue from a bolt that's too long going in too far, or a bolt that's too short and not reaching threads, and consequently you end up with a leak. So that's it. I won't make you watch me tighten them all up. once you have a few in, of course, it'll hold itself up, and it's just a matter of installing them all and tightening them to the correct torque per your manufacturer's specifications. Next, we will be on top side, refilling it with the correct amount of transmission fluid, automatic transmission fluid. And I will show you in the book that's for this vehicle where the correct amount of transmission fluid can be found. All right, so the bottom is all bolted up. You've got the bottom cover back on the vehicle. One note of reminder, whenever you put bolts or nuts back on a vehicle, always start them with your hand. Never start them with the tool, especially if you use, like I was using, a power impact or cordless impact or an air tool. Never start the nut or bolt into the thread with the tool. That's how you strip threads, cross thread, and end up with a whole nother batch of problems. So that's just another side note I wanted to reiterate. Now you'll notice that I put the old transmission fluid in a container here. It's about a gallon because some of the fluid is in the other pan that I put under there to catch the fluid from when I took off the filter, but it's about a gallon. So this is a good rule of thumb. I checked the transmission level before I drained it, and it was full. It was at the full line, and it was fine. Then I'm looking at how much I captured, and it's about a gallon. So when I check the actual manufacturer specification in the book, it should be about between 3 and 5 quarts, probably 3.8 or 4 quarts. So we'll use this kind of as a marker to help us verify that we have the correct amount. So when we go to step 5 to refill, we will have the correct amount to put in. And of course, when you're done, you want to verify that. So next will be step 5. We'll be putting the fresh new transmission fluid in the car. Okay, we're about to refill the automatic transmission with fluid. And as I stated earlier in the video, we're working today on a 1996. So I have a Haynes shop manual for vehicles, Toyota Corolla, from 93 to 2002. So 96 falls in that range. If we open up the book into the tune-up section, you'll see right here at the bottom, under automatic transmission, you will see for the 4-speed, which this vehicle is the 4-speed, it requires 3.3 quarts. Perfect. So that's how much we know to put back in the vehicle. And another point here is it's important to understand and know what configuration your vehicle has, such as year, make, model, engine size, and of course transmission type. In this case, this is a 4-speed. There may be a 5-speed. If this was a manual, like a stick shift, it would be 2.7 quarts. And that would not be transmission fluid, it would be gear oil. But this is an automatic and it is a 4-speed, so it is 3.3 quarts. So now all we have to do is get our nice new automatic transmission fluid here and install it. 3.3 quarts. See you in the car. Another note, whenever you're going to change your automatic transmission fluid, because it's refilled through the dipstick, you want to make sure you have on hand a nice narrow-nosed funnel that'll actually fit in the dipstick hole. So now we're going to add our 3.3 quarts. So we'll take out the dipstick, like so. We'll install our nice narrow funnel right in there like that. And we'll start pouring in 3.3 quarts, just like so. Pour nice and slow so it doesn't fill the funnel up and spill and make a mess. Just take your time. Once it's all done and you've installed all 3 quarts, you want to bring the engine up to operating temperature, and you want to check the transmission fluid while the engine is running and warm. Transmission fluid expands significantly, so there's a big difference between hot and cold. So to avoid getting a false reading, make sure you check it when the engine is running and when the engine is warm. And that's how you change automatic transmission fluid. Next, the final step after we check the level will be lowering the vehicle and remembering to remove the wheel chucks. Okay, I topped it off and I finally got it right in the upper portion of the full mark while the engine was hot. One note of caution. As you noted earlier, we noted that this vehicle requires 3.3 quarts of transmission fluid, but don't add 3.3 quarts right away. Just add 3 quarts. Then gradually, as you warmed it up and you check it, add up to the 3.3 to where it's full on the dipstick, because it's much easier to add additional fluid in small increments than to overfill it and have to let some out of the bottom and release that drain plug. That is a messy pain. So just add it slowly, take your time, and don't overfill the transmission, because overfilling the transmission can be detrimental to the transmission. So you would have to release fluid. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hopefully now you know how to change automatic transmission fluid. Be safe and subscribe.